Okay, that should be just on time. Is everybody hearing me? The stream quality is a little bit bad. It's a bit difficult to make out the text, isn't it? I wonder if this is getting any better. I don't think I can up the quality in the middle either. Bitrate should be fine. No, the resolution should be fine as well. That's not very useful. Voice also. Okay. I should also speak up a little bit, but is it possible this is actually maximum already? Okay, so I will just try to speak up. That should be fine, I think. And the chat is not too good, but I don't think they can fix that very quickly. I guess at least you can get an idea of what's being talked about in the stream. Okay. So it's my first lecture for the NGD, and after some thinking I picked Control Go as the topic. And why Control Go? I kind of got the idea from a certain collectible card game, whose name I will not mention, and who some people here might have played already. Because if you're familiar with those kinds of games, there's usually like kind of a 3 deck archetypes. So there's the control deck, there's the combo deck, and there's the aggro deck, right? And they basically kind of balance each other out. They're kind of like rock, paper, scissors. So if you're aggro, you're basically just going all in on the attack, and you just try to beat the opponent down before they can do anything. If you're combo, you kind of set up a special trick, which is not quite so quick, but once you get it rolling, it kind of takes control of the game altogether. And then there's the control deck, which is basically just trying to prevent whatever the opponent is doing to get hold of the flow of the game, and then much more slowly finally grind to a win, right? Okay, so well, luckily the resolution is so bad, so you cannot maybe make out the name. But yeah, anyway. So that's kind of how I got the idea here, because if you think about it, the aggro, the combo, and the control are kind of like, in a sense, kind of like Go styles as well. I mean, for aggro, you have the guy who tries to kill everything that moves, right? Nothing can live easily. You cannot kill the opponent themselves, but at least you can kill their groups on the board, so you will try whatever. And I guess in Go, when you think about combo, it would be more or less like frameworks or moyo, I guess. I mean, if you just have one wall, it's not doing anything. But when you get the walls working together, you can make a big territory out of them. So you need to set it up, but when you set it up, then it's powerful, right? And if we think about it in those sense, I guess the control deck would be more like... well, the key point would be they try to stop what the opponent is doing. So they don't let the opponent build a framework. And on the other hand, they also defend their groups so that the aggro player cannot just kill so easily, right? So, does the premise make sense here? I mean, as the order I have planned here, I thought we would first have I have 2 games prepared here. They're my practice games from the internet. I thought we would have some look at them, and then I would gradually bring out the concepts on a more general level. So, everything sound good so far? Control. So is control like a thick, patient style? I think that's fairly accurate, yes. Like, actually, maybe I should just put the slide out first here. Okay, so I can transition to here. It should be showing, right? The core idea of Control Go is basically, yeah. I mean, when you play Go, you need to have groups on the board. The groups have to make territory. You win with the territory. But before you can make territory, the groups have to be alive, right? And the very simple core idea here is that... wait a second, I'm getting an error here. Maybe it's fine. Yeah, so if you just make your group alive, that's not very efficient, right? I mean, if you're forming two eyes, then you're making 2 points of territory with it. So the idea should be that before the opponent gets to attack you, you should try to play defensive moves that do something else while defending. So surrounding territory or building influence. And you do this before the opponent attacks so that they don't even get the opportunity to start attacking you, right? So that's kind of controlling what they're doing, but preemptively. So that's the very simple core idea. Defending is supposed to be something that you want to do as long as you're not just defending, you're doing something more as well. And that's the kind of game and the kind of moves that you want to play. So with this, I guess we can go back and... yeah, so let's just start from here. These are fairly quick online games I played, but... well, there's still some thinking behind... sorry, that's the wrong game. There's still some thinking behind. I think it's like 20 or 30 seconds per move each. Okay, so I was black in this game. Most likely we should just skip past this Josuke here for now. I mean, if we want to look at these variations, then that's probably the whole lecture right there. So, as many people here are probably familiar with, this is a kind of difficult AI Josuke, which turned up with the AlphaGo, and which is really popular nowadays with when you have the 3-4 point stone here, black approaches. Basically, if you play the 2-space high pincer, it almost always becomes this Josuke, and it's very complicated. So the first point here as a prospective control player is that you should pick this Josuke only if you are comfortable with playing it. That you feel like you can keep it under control even though it's going to become a difficult fight. So if you don't know these variations, you don't think you can read it out, then just don't pick this variation, right? You can pick something easier. And never play it, yes, for example. Yeah, so since it's also in the lecture topic, lecture subtitle over here, so if you don't know anything else to do, just play the 1-space jump, right? So white would play a Keima maybe. And let's actually ask the audience here, what would you do next here as black? Let's say that these 2 stones here, they form a group that you want to become strong and stable. You want to avoid them to get under attack. So how do you do it? Three. That's one idea. Push one more, so that's a B. Push and R2 slide, okay. And R8 would be a completely different idea already. Not saying that R8 or D over here is bad or anything, but in that case you're creating a second group in the area where you already have one group which is not totally settled. Yeah, so D would be looking for more like a fighting game. So D would be an aggro player maybe. K3, so E. Yep, so that's also more like not just simply defending, but kind of setting up a position on the lower side, right? Yeah, so you could also, for example, you could push here. Maybe you could push once more. And I guess now you might judge that the black group over here is strong. So then you might play like a pincer or something. And this would be totally logical. Of course, it's not that you are only making something here, because at least you're helping white also build some more territory on the right side. So that's at least a payment you're making here, and you should be conscious about it, right? Or you could play attachment here. Well, white might extend and push through, in which case I think you will be very happy to sacrifice one stone to get a position on the lower side. I don't think this will actually happen. Okay, so to an attachment, usually you play a Hane, right? Okay, let's ask Fanshape actually what to play here next in response to the Hane. I'm a little bit interested in this. Let's see if Fanshape answers quickly. No idea. Yeah, so I mean, if possible, you would like to play this one for eye shape, I think, so that if white pulls back, then you can go down, and it's almost like you have two eyes here already, kind of. But I think the problem here is that white will play the Atari, so you cannot really connect because now your shape becomes hideous with the empty triangle. So you need to counter Atari. White captures. Okay, Atari is sent. Connect. Connect. Peep. So this is anyway becoming kind of a heavy group for black. It's not an impossible result or anything, but it doesn't feel very nice either. So white will get to pressure black from both sides. So Fanshape says crosscut. That's maybe an Atari here and connect. So black would connect here, I guess. White would take the stone. Black would connect. I guess if we want to go here, maybe it's better for black if he just goes down instead. So white peeps, black connects. And maybe next black can say that he can either play A or B to kind of create a base for the group. So that would be what I think is a territory-oriented way of defending the group here. I mean, black's getting into the corner, and it also, well, the lower side looks a little bit like it will become a black territory. Will it be rude if I say you look like Obi-Wan? Okay, that's nice. I don't mind. I need to get a beard, maybe. The force is strong with this one. Yeah, so compared to that, I think C is basically the same idea. So next you can play A, you can play B, and that should become a base for the black group. Or I also had the idea of just playing the slide over here, which used to be called kind of a pessimistic or a small move, but I think the AI doesn't actually mind this one. Anyway, black will be getting eyes on the lower side. But so with all of these variations, the point is that you should have a clear idea of what you want to do. So do you think the black group should be strengthened, or do you think you can ignore it and white cannot get a strong attack against it? So if you think it's a little bit weak, you should try to strengthen it, and then it's merely about picking the way to do it. So do you play the pushing variation and pincer, so that's like a counter attack? Or do you, for example, play attach and go down? So simply take territory and try to form a base. These are kind of strategical elementary building blocks here. So in the game I picked the press and the complicated Joseki because I have studied it to some degree, and I thought that I can just handle the variations. And when you are familiar with the variations, it's a good way to play. Okay. So white takes the corner. I think black's attachment here is a move. I mean, well, we shouldn't look this in too much detail, but my original idea was to play the jump over here, which is much simpler. So if white, for example, connects in the center, it's easy for black to just play the slide and leave on the lower side. So white blocks, and then my plan was to play a diagonal over here. So I don't know if white attaches, black just goes out, and so black has a one weak group in the middle, but white also has A and B, both of which are a little bit weak. So it should be fightable for both. Let me see the comments here. Yeah, so that was my original idea here. But then, because I think I had a 30 seconds per mover here, so I was using all of my time and just trying to look if there's something better. And I figured that this attachment, which I think I've seen before, should work out. Because in this case, black has the help of the A-stone. So white plays the honey, and I figured that the crosscut cannot be bad for black here. So the simple idea is that if white simply extends out, black plays the Atari block, and white cannot really escape anywhere because the A-stone is just where black needs it. So this is just something I read out during the game, even though it wasn't my original idea. So white played Atari, and switched for the lower side instead. And maybe I will show a bit more. So turn. Japanese term is amashi. Amashi is a nice term, yes, or more like a nice way of playing. Amashi, I don't think Western players are too familiar with it, but so it's basically you leave behind slightly weak groups that are difficult for the opponent to attack. And then you just take territorial profit first. But that's not really control go. I mean, I guess it's control go in a sense, but you need to be sure that you can handle your weak groups, right? But usually it's easier just to take care of your groups to start with. So here was one such situation, I think. I mean, right now the black group should be fairly strong here, and the white A-stone is definitely dead, right? But I was just thinking that, okay, so if black is alive, black should play elsewhere. For example, take the corner. Something happens. And then I wasn't quite sure what I should do when white plays N2. I mean, I don't think the AI valued this move very highly, but I was feeling annoyed if white got this one. Because it's taking away black's potential territory. It's making white follow-up moves such as this one center. And if you look at what happens, I mean, black probably cannot just answer all of these, because now that looks like a big group, right? And white got some territory, and white is also building the center. So I just figured that when white plays here, probably black needs to add a move in the center to defend, like, I don't know, Keima here. And if this is the case, then we can just already think about the AB exchange as white taking territory, leaving some follow-ups, and black playing move in the center, which has or doesn't have a big value. Okay, the commentary is easier, but I won't comment on that, I guess. Yeah, so that's just something I was thinking about here, and I figured that, okay, taking the corner is not a bad move, but it's a normal move, so I'll just defend. Points. Does A have a big value? I think that, let me see. So the points value of that one. Yeah, so from an endgame perspective here, I guess if we assume that AB happens, so eventually it's going to be like this, right? And of course now there's the open question of what's happening on the outside, because the white 5 stones over here are weak, right? But white's push, the A push here, is probably center. Black's going to answer. White's going to jump in the center. So it's going to become an ongoing fight, but white should be fine. So now if we just look at the black territory in the center, most likely it's this 4 points at best here. And white got to play these stones. So that is at least the square points here. And there's also a little bit more, because it used to be the case that, well, okay, let's go for the game shape, I guess. In this game shape, black also has a kind of endgame move here. So without going too much into the carpenter square variations, I think the correct one here is white bumps, black plays Hane, and white has to play like this to form 2 Ys. And if white doesn't go for this one, then white can only get a Seki, I think. So territorially, this is the best one for white. But so basically, in this shape, the white corner is almost without points, right? And if white has these stones, black can never play A because white has the B connection. So all of the lower right corner also becomes territory. And then there is maybe the question that maybe all of this white A and B and so on, maybe it turns out to be center for white. In which case there's also a huge reverse center value. So taking all of those kinds of possibilities into account, N2 is starting to look pretty big, right? Plus there is also the fact that if black gets to play A, B, C, white is also not alive on the lower side. One of the big things you need for Control Go is a good understanding of the resulting endgame shapes. It's definitely valuable, yes. So I mean, as was also in the slide over here, so it was that just defending is inefficient. You want to play defensive moves with secondary benefits, so added territory or influence. And the territory is one of the key points here. For a move to be territorially active, it doesn't necessarily have to be creating territory, right? It's just enough that your shape is solid, the opponent doesn't get center moves against it, and because of that, maybe you have some center endgame sequences much later in the game. So just the fact that your group is strong, the shape is solid, can actually bring in a lot of points later in the game. And the better your endgame skills are, of course, the more value you can get out of it. White can also select a ko. In 1313, AI preferred ko to 2 points life. Oh, that's possible, yes. So 4 is referring to... Wait, where was the variation again? I think I lost it. Probably one of these variations, so I don't know how exactly it might go, but maybe like this kind of a thing and this kind of a thing, and could be this kind of a ko, for example. Maybe this is not the best one, but surely there is also a ko possibility for white. Of course, it can mean that the white group dies, but you cannot have everything. Right, but from this game, this was one of the main things I wanted to show. So moves like N2, it doesn't look like too much, but when you start thinking about what else you will get later, thanks to having played the move, and that in this fashion become bigger, these are the kinds of moves that you want to play. And most likely it can be a little bit difficult to find such moves, because when you look at black B here, just from black's point of view, it doesn't seem too special, right? So you will need to contrast how the position looks after a black move at B with the position where white gets to play the B, and whatever white can get in center after having played the move at B, right? So you will have to actively think about what the opponent could possibly do, and what the opponent will want to do. Question, is this related to the gote no sente, Maxim? Gote no sente. So gote no sente is Japanese meaning basically a move that looks like a gote move, but actually is kind of sente anyway. Not like it's actively forcing the opponent to do anything, but because it's still putting pressure and the opponent doesn't have anything better to do than finally to just answer. Which I guess is also true here, because if white doesn't answer, then definitely black's ABC is going to be kind of painful for the white group. So it does keep white playing locally. But I think there's the added problem here that most likely white's going to end up with center here. Because this is still a kind of ongoing fight. Also, the white turn here might not... Well, actually, I guess it is center because white can play A next. But it's also not extremely powerful. But it's just that the players are still kind of building their shapes, and the shapes are not final. So it's kind of difficult to say who will end with center and gote here. So it's possible that B still doesn't really refer to center and gote. Or it's possible that the actual decision comes later. So black jumped, kind of similar with it. I mean, if A was a defensive move for territory, then L7 here is a defensive move for influence, right? Okay, white center. White goes out. Okay, quiz time. Black to play. So since we have the lecture topic, it's still basically you want to look for good defensive moves, right? What's the best one? Well, I guess there can be many best ones, but try to find a good one. Q12. R12. That's basically the same idea, I would say. Oh, true. It's a two-space extension. I think when I wrote the title of the lecture, I was thinking two-space extension on the third line. So the A over here would be doing much more than that. Okay, nice one. Oh no, this was totally planned. This is exactly how I planned the lecture to go. Yes, so A is a great two-space extension, and that's what I played also. But I think also the R12 and also Black Bull's P11 are similarly good. It's difficult to say which one of these is actually the best. In general, I think third line, but here we're a bit stronger than usual. Yes, I think so. So if you play the all-gamer here, white can at least get this one in center, right? Threatening to go through next. And I think black defends best with this one. But I mean, if this happens, then I think you would rather have this shape, right? Of course, white will not play the diagonal, but this would look better for black. And as for the bad side of this move, I guess there could be some kind of a problem with white maybe trying to come in here, for example. But I think my plan was to just play a diagonal attachment here. So white can go out and I just keep the rest. This was my design anyway. Does Q11 aim at 09? So if black plays here, does this aim for this move, huh? Possibly. So if you do this, I guess white plays the Atari, captures the stone like this. So yeah, this way black would be getting a nice strong shape on the right side. But when you think about it, the territorial gain is probably not too big. If it has to be like this later, for example. And it's also a small loss that you have to give the A stone as a capture to the white group, because this means that the white group in the center is actually it's quite a lot stronger. It's like it has one eye already, kind of. At this point, does white even need to save these stones? That's also a valid question. So like white could even just play the outside honey here, have black connect. Well, actually, the remaining cut here is big. But if white tries to defend it, then the capture is big. I guess it's still pretty big to take it, though. I mean, just the capture in itself would be big. It depends on what else we have on the board. But it's still easily like at least 15 points. Maybe also some center influence. So at least I think white should be happy to at least get this much before playing elsewhere. It should be sent after all. If it's not sent, then the follow-up for white here is huge. Dominating the Twitch go scene. But yeah, Q11 would also be in the right part of the board. But I guess because the follow-up is not too interesting here. I mean, I wasn't at least planning on attacking the white group here. If black is planning to attack, then it's better to keep a solid shape here. But I was just defending here. I was afraid that if I, for example, take the territorially big corner from here and play the Joseki, then white's game over here is big. So mainly this scenario here is what black wants to avoid, right? Because now the whole right side group is actually becoming quite weak. Black needs to attach and maybe go down for eyes. And it still feels a little bit bad to ignore this one, because if white gets the cut, then it's possible the corner is getting in trouble, the side is getting in trouble. So maybe black has to connect underneath. Now this is just looking painful, right? So black can probably defend, but it's going to take most of the potential on the right side. So yeah, that was a nice one by Fanshave. Defensive 2-space extension, territory stability. And I think this is starting to be most from this game already. So in the game, actually, white defended in the center, even though I wasn't even dreaming of attacking it. I mean, white was probably afraid of black playing here and starting some kind of a splitting attack. But this is not the kind of control go I wanted to play here, let's say. So white defended, and I think... Alright, I even just jumped instead of taking the corner. Because I wasn't exactly planning to kill white or anything, but I just made the group weak so that it has to escape, right? And then I took the territory. And then the game basically became quite... Well, white tried a little bit of something on the upper side later, but right now all of the black groups are strong. Black should also have a big lead on territory. And so white is basically left to trying to build something like this on the upper side, right? Try to hope that either all of this becomes territory, or black tries to invade and dies. And what's the control go player's solution to this one? One last point from this game. I guess we can have a look at this point actually. So white presses here, and white's plan is to start building the upper side. It's a training game by me. What's that emoji? Is that Syria Forel? Princess Bride? No, maybe it's different. Bob Ross. Okay. Syria Forel would be better though. Yeah, so you are a black player here. All of your groups are strong. You have a big lead on territory. And white is just starting to lean on your upper left corner to start building the upper side. What do you do about this? Just get good. Get a Bob Ross hairdo. Okay, so the chat is getting quiet here. I guess in general, the attach E17 looked good. In general, we can pick two policies here, right? We can say yes to the white design, or we can say no to it. So either we can let white build the framework and we just give it to them, we reduce from the outside, everybody is happy. Or we can just, before white gets to set up the framework, we can just try to invade and erase it from the inside. Yeah, so connecting here is a good first idea, I think. Like, if you don't connect here and try to play on the upper side, white's going to have a very easy time cutting black here, splitting black into two attackable groups, and also taking away a lot of black's potential territory in the corner. So at least connect first, and when white plays E17, now it's possible to think a little bit. C15, D16, C17 possible. I've seen this before. I mean, it's not very bad or anything, but just locally the shape is a little bit suboptimal for black. Like, okay, so if black extends, then white can just block anyway, right? Then it becomes similar. And if not, then white's going to be happy to get this block from here. I guess black could also attach and connect. I mean, it looks fine. It cannot possibly be a big mistake or anything. But at the same time, I think that if you ask the AI, it will just say all the time, just block, have white play the honey, and then play elsewhere, if you want to play elsewhere. I'm a big believer in giving and taking away. Yeah, so the giving plan would be this one. And I guess now it's a bit difficult to invade the upper side, so maybe just black starts erasing from the outside. So Funshape's idea was case 16 here. Yeah, so before white gets to set it up, erase it, right? So maybe white answers, black jumps. Okay, maybe white plays Atari and hanging connection. And then it can just continue normally. Yeah, I think this would be one fairly simple way for black to control this game. I mean, you keep the territory at A, you still have the big territory at B, and you basically have one job here. Your one job is not to die with the sea stones, because if they don't die, then can you see any territory for white in this game? Well, besides the small one at D, right? If we are ahead by enough, then Goday's plan is better. The giving plan. Yeah, that is a fair point, I guess. So if black thinks he's ahead by enough, then this could be simpler. But I would also argue that from the control Go player's point of view, this game is harder. Because in this game, we have this pretty big white potential around here. It's like, I think we could say it this way. We could say that the potential is something that the control player hates. Because we don't exactly know how much we should count for white in this area. I mean, as territory, how much white will finally get here. And anything uncertain is something that's a little bit difficult to control, right? I mean, to keep in check, prevent from becoming too big, right? So I'm not saying that this plan is bad for black or anything, but if we put on the control Go player hat, then this is something we want to avoid, I think. So in the game also, I invaded the upper side. I think objectively the shoulder hit is actually better at A, but in this case I just ended up playing J17. And then basically white started the last attack. Then I played this one because it's center. A next is just too big. White blocked, and it became a kind of a last leading sequence here. It actually got a little bit too complicated because my reading was not good. Black could simply have extended and gone down. And this would kind of be I think this group would be alive already. If white tries to resist, black will just connect underneath. Well, that kind of possibility existed there. Anyway, it wasn't really in danger of dying. And once black lives, eventually, I'll not go into detail. So eventually the game basically looks like this, right? Most of the potential white had in the center is, on the upper side is destroyed. Okay, so there's the new wall in the center. But the center area has like at least 3 different openings. So it's not going to become big territory finally. Okay, I think that's enough about this game, so let me bring out the next slide then. So we had the core idea over here, that just defending is inefficient. So before the opponent attacks, you want to play defensive moves that also give you territory or influence. So don't let the opponent to attack, and also try to get something besides defending, right? So this should be interesting next. So a control player likes countable certain things for both sides. Yes, exactly. So here's also the main values for a control Go player. So number one thing you want to avoid is to let the opponent surround a big framework, right? I mean, a big moyo is basically the uncertainness, the thing itself, right? I mean, you don't know how much territory the framework is finally going to end up with. If you invade, you might not even be sure if you live inside or not, right? If you die, then the game might be over. So, if possible, you want to prevent the opponent from building a framework before it happens. I mean, if you let them get the framework and you can invade, it's almost as good. But it's better if the framework doesn't exist in the first place. Point number two, or value number two, is you actually don't mind getting invaded. So you can be the one who builds the framework. Then the opponent invades, and you're like, sure, have a small group. You don't try to attack it, you just get the territory you can, you make the opponent weak, and maybe make all of your groups strong at the same time. So getting invaded is something that's actually very welcome, and which you want the opponent to do. Point number three is increase the number of each player's groups. So, of course, there's a caveat here, I think. Like, for example, if the opponent has 3 groups and you have 6 groups, if anybody watching here knows the proverb, the pseudo proverb for 6 groups is that if you have 6 groups, usually one of them is dead. So you want to avoid going up to 6 groups, right? Usually 5 is the maximum. But also at the same time, you shouldn't have too many more groups than the opponent. If the opponent has one huge group in the center and you have 5 groups, most likely you are under attack everywhere, right? So the other limit is that you should try to make it so that you have at most 1 group more than the opponent. So if they have 3, you can have 4. Maybe if they have 5, you can have 6, because then both players' groups are getting kind of weak, right? Also known as cut when cut can. A cut when you can, huh? Yeah, so it's not that you should fight for the sake of fighting, right? But if you can have strong, small groups all around the board, then what that usually results in the territories all around the board being small. And the smaller the territories are, the smaller the uncertainty, because it basically reduces the value of the biggest move available. Because you don't have huge frameworks, you don't have huge potentials. If all of the groups are also strong, then you can play like, okay, here's a 4-point move, here's a 4-point move, here's a 3-point move, and so on until the game ends. So that is the last point here. So you try to make available moves as boring as possible. No frameworks, no huge potentials, no weak groups. You can maybe threaten the opponent. Like, you're not actually threatening them, but you play a move that if the opponent doesn't answer, then you might be able to threaten them. Prodi is here too, huh? Boring moves. Yes. So as much as possible, try to make the board position so that none of the moves really stands out. Ideally you do it so that you get the last relatively bigger move, and then the opponent and you are both left with very boring moves. So you try to get the last bigger looking move, and then the rest is boring. That's the basic idea here. Okay, let me see. I have one more slide, but I think that's for a bit later. Yes. Okay, so let's go for the second and probably also the last game. I actually do have a third one prepared, but that's just to be safe. Right? Game 2. Yeah, and I was white in this one because there's the facing Komokus and there's the Ogema enclosure. That's my go-to opening as white. Territory. Let black take the left side. approach the lower right corner. I guess you could already say that this is kind of ideal for a control player, because it's this early in the game, and you already have 3 groups for the opponent. So, and none of them is fairly big either. So it's like there's almost going to be no framework at this point, right? The last thing Black might try is to play a pincer around here and try to get something on the right side. But I think White could avoid it from getting too big. For example, like this. But yeah, so Black played here. 2 space extension, best move on earth. Black attached here, and I think I made a possible mistake here as a control player. I mean, I extended here. And so when I was reviewing this game for the lecture, I was thinking that I actually gave Black the opportunity to pincer here. I mean, Black also has some weakness at p3, but I'm not going to attack, I'm just defending. If Black pincers and White doesn't answer, so Black's going to play this kind of a pressing Keima to start building more of a framework on the right side. So, as a control player, White would jump out. Maybe then, well, I'm getting some AI ideas. Maybe the AI would attach here once, and then defend the lower side. And of course, it's not like this is very bad for White or anything, but at least Black got to build a bit of a framework on the right side, which White can still invade anyway. But I think there might be a strictly superior move here. Anybody think of it? White to play. Basically, try to make the game as boring as possible, right? And that's one way to think about it. R11, yes. So just prevent the pincer before it happens. And I think in classical we would say that, oh no, if Black gets this Hane over here, it's too good of a shape in the corner, right? What is that White A-stone doing? And as the control player, I think, well, we might actually go down here. It's good for territory, right? Or you might just play a second 2-space extension. Because finally, if Black does capture the White A-stone, it's kind of like the corner looks like this, right? I mean, this exchange is a little bit bad for White, but it doesn't really change the fact that the corner is just over-concentrated. So sacrificing that White stone there at A is nothing to mind in this case, I think. Maybe also Black will not answer, Black will play elsewhere. Then we can extend here. Then it's just perfect. So two space extension on the right side, totally settled group. Let me see. So a control player doesn't invade corners so much, because that wouldn't give the opponent a new group. That is a little bit possible, yes. So if you invade the star point corner, first of all, you are adding to your own groups there. And you also give the opponent the outside so they can build influence and most likely connect it to an existing position, right? So, let me see. For example, this kind of an opening, right? So I mean, obviously the 3-3 invasion here is not bad or anything. But if we go here, then that also kind of makes the right side ideal. I mean, as the control player, this right side is what we don't want as White, right? It's just one single huge framework. So much more rather you would just directly split it, or maybe you approach, and when Black pincers, you don't go into the corner, but you, for example, pick this outside variation, which is also Joseki. So to split Black into 2 separate groups. And this immediately becomes much easier to control again, I think. Because there's nothing big uncertain happening. Okay, so wait. I think I need to remove the stones from here. Yeah, so this luckily to me didn't happen in the game. Black extended. Okay, so I attached here. I mean, I could have played the A extension immediately, but I figured that at this timing the attachment is kind of sent, so I can manage it. Black simply connected, and then I go back. So now this is starting to look ideal already, right? Small groups everywhere, territory, nothing very interesting that Black would want to play next. Incidentally, why didn't I connect here? Does somebody know? I mean, I guess, well, it should start to be obvious, but let's go through the question anyway. Pincer. Pincer or invasion? It depends on the point of view. But yeah, anyway, I still dislike the prospect of Black getting play R10. You want him to invade. I guess in this case, White actually doesn't want Black to invade yet. I mean, okay, so that actually may need clarification in the points. We don't mind getting invaded when our groups are anyway strong, right? But if Black plays here, the White A group is not completely alive, and the B stones actually also don't really have a base so far. So instead of Black invading White framework or something, this is more like Black splitting White into two groups. So in that sense, I guess I wouldn't call this an invasion. So like, I guess White might pincer, Black goes out like this, and this looks more like a fighting game, where White is actually busy on two fronts at the same time. Maybe just specify that you want to increase the number of safe strong groups. Yeah, that's good. That is the point. Yes, you don't want to have 5 weak groups. You want to have as many... Yeah, okay, that's good. So as many strong groups as possible. Okay, thanks, Funshave. Extension. Okay, Black attaches. We get one more... Well, it's a Joseki variation, but that's normal. Then... Alright, so basically at this point the game was already nice and boring, we could say. I think my first idea was to just connect here to make the right side a normal shape. Or maybe a territorial 2-space extension here, or almost anything else. Maybe even just to reduce the upper side. Throw a stone in. And this might be a kind of... it's an unconventional way of controlling the game as White here. Maybe also unconventional way to control in general. So I play the press here, right? That's right. I play the press. Black resists and then connects. Forcing. Black connects. Okay, White connects too. Black even plays the peep, and instead of trying to fight it somehow like 07, I just connect. So what is White doing here? Basically, Black's territory didn't really increase, and White formed this wall. What for? This is one of the things I actually like the most in playing Control Go. Well, especially online. So White is building this menacing wall in the lower right corner, right? And the right side is starting to look like a White framework, right? I mean, yeah, obviously it is for control. So White is starting to build this box on the right side. If you don't see the box, then imagine one more White move here, right? So what's this? What is Black going to think about this when this happens? I mean, the opponent is going to notice it. The opponent will be like, okay, so they're building a framework here. I won't let that happen, right? The important point is around 0.15. I see. Alright, if we think about it in terms of competing frameworks, then yes, it's true. Black might want to play here to start to build this area, right? And similarly, also White next might want to play, what is the move? Around here. To prevent the Black move and to start forming this box. Like this, right? Yeah, I guess it is a possible idea. Most likely the difference is just that because this is a game on the Fox server, they don't really want to play this patiently. How to use the Blackstone? That it was not a possible. Yeah, I think Luna's idea is fine here. Just in this game, instead, Black invaded here because it's removing the white potential around A, potential for territory, and it's also a little bit starting an attack on the B stones, right? Yeah, 014 would surprise me on Fox. Right. And I think I may have made a mistake here again in terms of control goal in this game. So I let Black cut. Okay, so I played a forcing move here. I strengthened. So one of the ideas for me during the game here was that I thought that A and B would both become kind of weak. And so I thought that Black would connect here and White would go out and we would have this kind of boring jumping contest where nothing ever happens. And this would lead to the game becoming small territories all around, no potential. But Black played this jump instead. I played the attachment here, and, well, actually Black let me get away with it. So I just got to connect underneath, form territory. Okay, Black turned here, and I just reduced. It's still a little bit suboptimal in the sense that Black can play A and get a fairly big territory. But at least this is more like you can see the territory already. You just let Black get it and get some moves on the outside, play normal. It's at least controllable, you could say. Making many small groups is better for White, isn't it? Because then Komi plays a bigger role. It is true, yes. So the smaller the territories are on the board, and the smaller the final territory counts for the players are, then the bigger the value of the Komi is. I mean, you can think about it this way. If both players have 100 points of territory, then the 6.5 point Komi isn't a big percentage out of it. So relatively, it makes a smaller impact. Whereas if both players have 20 points, then the additional 6.5 point Komi there is like 1/3 of the whole value, right? So that's a relatively much bigger value. And it actually does work like that. So especially for White, White prefers to have smaller territories all around, smaller total counts of points. And it is actually true that just a little bit, this way of playing Control Go is better for White than for Black. But I think it's still viable for Black as well. You just have to be careful that you get a reasonable amount of territory. But yeah, so the actual problem with this plan was that Black could actually cut White like this. I realized this after I played my move, when Black was thinking. Black bumps, connects, and White is just cut. Or I guess White can just try to go down, but Black connects. Black can even cut. It's the same thing. So I made a reading problem here. I think the plan was fine, but the reading was wrong, and that's how I could have gotten in trouble if the opponent punished. But that didn't happen. But probably from the start, I think White doesn't really need to help the B-stones here. How else could White use the B-stones? Ideas? Because, well, if you see the B-stones as a group, then you want to take them out, right? Because they're getting weak. But you don't have to think about the B-stones as a group. They can just be some stones you discard, sacrifice, give away. Yeah, just sack them. So Q13 is a good way to do this. So, okay, so it's just bad technique for Black to play from this side, right? Because it means White gets an extra capture. So Black plays the outer Hane, and now White doesn't want to cut because, well, it might be possible actually, but this way White's cut, Black is cut, and Black will start to fight inside here. So it might be possible, but as a control player, it's not what we want here, right? Pull back, let Black connect, maybe even play Hane here and extend. So just give Black the small territory, keep building the outside, not with the idea of getting a huge territory here, but more like with the idea of forcing black to waste a move in the center so that we can get back to a boring game, right? Just do something on the upper side. No big territories, everybody... Well, you are happy. The opponent isn't happy. I have thought about this theory of small territories, but was unsure if that is just an illusion or if it's actually better for white, for example, as validated by AI. I haven't validated it with the AI because it's kind of it's really difficult to validate. It depends on so many fluid things at the same time, right? But I do have the intuition that it should be correct. As a player, as experienced as I am anyway. So, kind of a gut feeling. Plus, I have heard it being said by other Japanese players as well. My teacher has also said it to me. If my teacher said it, then most likely her teacher, that is Kitani, also more or less believed it. So at least that's a long line of Go tradition, which is going along with the presumption. Oh, and also Inseong, so that means Korean pros also think it. Right, yeah, so that's what white should have done here. And the game could have been dangerous if black found the key move. He didn't, white connected. And, okay, black got a big territory on the upper side. But, alright, he even played here, huh? Yeah, so black was trying to create uncertainty in the top area, trying to form it into a big moyo. But as white, I'm kind of like, okay, I just live. You take it. You just take it, right? Just take it. This was a forcing move as well. I just wanted black to reinforce the area. And yeah, then I think I just went back. So basically, it may look like white is building the territory here, but it was more like I just want to make sure that this group doesn't possibly come under attack later. As the base idea. The territory was a nice bonus, but that's how Control Go works, right? Okay, so with the second game example here, let's go for the next slide. Second to last one, actually. Yeah, so it's most likely not an exhaustive list or anything, but so here's the main methods that we have seen here. Methods for keeping control. So you want to preemptively strengthen your groups against attacks. That also we covered earlier. So before your opponent can mount some kind of attack, you play a defending move that prevents the attack and also gets something, territory or influence, at the same time. Second important thing is that you have to try to predict what your opponent wants to do. And you should somehow try to work against it. I mean, if the opponent is a combo player, so a moyo player, well, you have to be on the lookout for if the opponent tries to build a moyo, right? And you have to do something about it quickly enough. Or you also have to be on the lookout if the opponent is trying to create a huge fighting game and try to kill everything. So if they're kind of like the typical aggro player, right? So I guess you can try to predict move by move, but you can also kind of try to, inside your head, build a caricature of the opponent's psychology. If they're a combo player, aggro player, possibly something else. And then just work against it. If they're super aggressive, you take extra care in defending. They might be looking for some Tesuji combination, which you should be able to see if you spend some time looking out for it. Or if they're building the framework, just try to imagine the box they're building and either enter it or just come from the outside so it doesn't become a box. This is good if you have telepathy. Well, the point is actually that the strong players are kind of telepaths. I mean, the stronger you become, the more you are able to infer from the board situation what the opponent is thinking. I mean, that's why they call the game Shudan in Japanese. Shudan as in hand talk. So it's not just playing move by move silently, but it's more like a exchange of ideas. And the ideas or game plans have to be based on some kind of logic or plan behind it. So it basically finally becomes a exchange of plans, which you just do move by move. instead of using words. So that's how you have hand talk. And yeah, third and the last point is choose lines of play you understand and you can manage. So this is a key point. Like, don't play AI variations you don't understand. Don't play memorized variations if you don't know what you should do when the opponent just plays differently. Like, okay, so you know this huge AI Joseki, you have memorized the variations, but there's so much space that the opponent who doesn't know it just plays some common different move, and then you don't know what to do. That's like very suboptimal, non-ideal. So you should play kind of moves that you understand. I am playing this move because this fixes the cutting point and is also looking to form ice here and territory here and maybe attack the opponent there. You should be able to verbalize it. The thinking shouldn't be just like if this, then this, then this, but more like here because I want to do this kind of a thing. Not move, but more like idea. Defend, attack, territory, influence, sacrifice, pressure, those kinds of ideas. Higher level verbalized concepts. And yeah, so I guess I will go back to this one. Yeah, so especially in the first game, this Joseki is like the best example of this, right? If you're not very familiar with this Joseki and know the possible lines of fighting and so on, actually maybe you don't even need to know the variations if you just know what you want to do here and you can read it out. Like, that's usually the best thing. That's why they say that pros don't play Joseki, they create Joseki. Because they are strong enough that they can play good anyway, and they just pick the move that makes sense for the board without care for this is a memorized variation of 30 moves, which always goes to this result. They don't play like that. Also have to be careful that you're not just preventing something, but getting something valuable, as your opponent could have multiple options and could just do something different. Yes. Yeah, so that's a little bit like the topic, the idea also that, there's this proverb that the opponent's good move is your good move, but that's not actually always true, right? Could I build a good one here? Okay, let me just create from the game we just saw. So like we had this position, right? And I think it was Luna who mentioned this black move here. And let's just change this a little bit. So it's like white is strong here, black has a group here. And okay, I'll just let black connect underneath and white also leaves. Whatever. No, that still doesn't quite make sense. Okay, let's also add the black move around here. Well, it's not a perfect example, but I think it will do. So like, if it was black to play in this kind of a situation, probably you try to think of something like around A, I think. Maybe it's not ideal, but yeah, as black, you kind of want to start building this kind of a box over here, right? But just the fact that black A is good doesn't mean that white's this move here is good, right? Because if white plays here, black will just answer anyway on the upper side, and black can still get kind of a big territory. And the white stone by itself is not doing much. Because in this case, when black is on the right side, white cannot really build anything. White A stone is not building much influence, it's not building much territory, it's not really defending anyway, because white is already strong. So it's kind of like more like an empty move actually. So A is good for black, but not for white. And what white should do instead would be to more quickly go inside. So because white is strong on the right side, black splitting white doesn't really hurt or anything. White can just move out. And if black defends, then the territory is going to be much smaller. So it's not just that the exact same move or the immediate surrounding. Well, this is quite white B is good here, and B is kind of close to A. But there are also cases where white's good move will be something much further away from A. Like if the position was a bit different, maybe it would be an invasion at C, right? So it's still connected to the higher idea. It's not the exact same move, but because black A is building a moyo, and something like the white C invasion would be destroying the moyo before it comes up, right? Your opponent's good idea is your good idea, not the move specifically. I think that's better, yes. It doesn't sound quite so snappy, but I think in general that's more correct. So like, if you can see what the opponent should be strategically doing, then you can kind of work against it, right? So if the opponent is trying to attack you, then you should defend. If the opponent can strengthen their group while also building territory, then maybe you can play in the same area to weaken the group and remove the potential territory. That kind of flip side. So it's not the exact opposite, but strategically it's, well, fairly much the opposite anyway. Not completely, but... Okay, so back to the slide here. Yeah, so choose lines of play you understand and can manage. And think in terms of higher level concepts when doing this. Okay, so actually the time is starting to be about right, so we can go to the wrap-up slide here. Yeah, just some main summary points, because I was also already starting to wrap up the lecture. So, was it GoDave who came up with the new phrasing? So point 1, groups are a limited resource. You have to choose their position carefully. So, I mean, the original idea used to be that more groups is better, but GoDave added to it that all the groups should be strong. So the more strong groups, the better, right? You want to avoid weak groups because weak groups just by themselves kind of add to the uncertainty of the game and they make it harder to control. So strong groups are nice. But once the groups are strong, then you want to form as many as possible because it means that territories are smaller. And when the territories are smaller, it also reduces the value of the next move. Like, instead of building a huge territory with 20 more points, it's going to be those endgame moves. 4 more points, 4 more points. And that's easy, right? At least controllable. So, the follow-up idea from this is that you cannot build too many groups, right? Because you have to spend time to make them strong. And there was also the rule that if you have 6 groups, one of them is dead. So usually your maximum number of groups is 5. And if 5 groups is all that you can form on the board, then you should actually spend some effort into thinking where exactly you want to position them, right? So like, for example, let me just go back quickly. This was in the first game, I think. Yeah, so this one here. Actually, when I had played this move in the game, I had actually counted my groups. I had seen, okay, black has B, C, D, E, 4 groups. White's number is a bit harder, like 1 and 2 might get connected, 1 and 3 might get connected. Well, 4 is separate, 5 and 3 might get connected, 6 and 5 might get connected. But so in general, white might have just one big group in the center, and that's how it eventually came up. But at this point of the game, also white might have 2 or 3 or 4 separate groups. So it's not like building a 5th one should be bad for black here. Or so I figured. So because there's so many separate groups, I figured, okay, let's make one more. I should be able to manage it, right? I guess you can also use the only one more group than the opponent, at most, right? That rule. 1 more than the opponent, maximum 6. Maximum 5, sorry. And yeah, so once you know this is the maximum number of groups, then you just think where you want to have them. So in the last game, I had the 4 corners. White had the center brewing, so I just put my last group in the middle of the white framework, so that when it lives, it kind of reduces the maximum number of white potential there. Yeah, and second idea was that so building something is a way to force the opponent to take action, and this way you can basically control the game. So this was in the second game, right? I built the wall over here, not with the idea of building a huge framework or anything, but just so that I had basically forced Black's hand. Black now has to do something about this framework. And, well, ideally I would have played this one, keep the game simple, strong groups, and make it a kind of boring territorial game, right? So it's kind of the opposite way of how I think you're used to doing it. Like, if you feel like forcing the opponent, you usually try to attack their weak group or take away their territory. That feels more like forcing, right? But those kinds of things usually involves fighting, or it involves your own weak groups. So it's not very good for a control player. As a control player, you instead make it look like you are building something, so that the opponent will feel like they want to take it away from you, and then you just you don't fight back. They invaded. Getting invaded is something you want, right? So then you just basically make the game peaceful again. Get some nice forcing moves, make your group strong. Back to a boring game. Yeah. And so the last point is basically just patience is key. You need to be patient as a control player, because you're not looking for a knockout match here, right? We are not fighting, we are not building moyos, so the game will not be over in a heartbeat. You want a boring game where each of the moves is like 4 points each, and you just play that until the end. Thanks for. Yeah, so that's actually also okay. That came a bit abruptly, but that was also the main points that I had prepared for this lecture. So I guess we could just use a few minutes if the viewers have some questions, and then we shall wrap up here. Control Go 101. Yeah, thanks for watching. How to be patient. Yeah, please do watch Eskil. I'll put this in YouTube in just a moment, and you can see it on Twitch also, right? I find in my games I can't resist the urge to start some trouble anyway. That is a problem, yes. I mean, kind of by definition, when you play as a control player, you are the one who doesn't do anything. You wait for the opponent to do something, and then you try to control it. And even more optimally, you try to force the opponent to do something, so that then you can manage it more easily, and to make the game boring again, right? I find in my games I let myself get invaded too much. Yeah, so from the point of this lecture, that's actually not a problem. Getting invaded is fine, because it means that the opponent will have small groups, right? The opponent's small groups are something nice for you. But you need to avoid the opponent splitting you in a way that you end up with weak groups. That's the main thing you have to avoid. So you can let the opponent invade as long as it doesn't hurt your position. The groups, you can pay territory, but you cannot pay group strength, basically. So even if you feel there's some agi but are not sure how exactly to use it, better to not probe and just leave it. That is a very wide question, I think. Because you are not sure how exactly to use it already depends on your reading ability, right? So it's different for different level players. And also I think the ways that you might be able to use the agi are different depending on the position. But I think the main thing you want to avoid, I mean, you may not have to make use of the agi, but you have to avoid a situation where the opponent gets to play some one really nice move that completely fixes their shape, also makes 15 points of territory and connects all their groups and whatever, you have to prevent them from getting that kind of a really nice move. So as long as you maybe don't have to use the Agi, but at least make it so that the opponent cannot efficiently prevent it. You can let them defend it, you can let them get something, but so that it feels like your next move is at least just about as good in exchange. So it's not like it doesn't have to be a yes/no question for that one particular weakness, but more like you take that, I take this, and if this exchange is fair, then all is fine, right? In general. Beyond that, it's so position specific that it's difficult to give a general answer, I think. But yeah, I guess in general you would want to avoid a situation where you're not sure what's happening, right? And that is the thing you would want to avoid in Control Go. Okay, I think there's no other questions, so let's finish here. Thanks for watching, and we have one more lecture coming up in 1 week. I think it'll be Oscar this time. Yeah, you can continue on Discord. Okay, thanks, and see you next time.